My attention, I didn't believe in it. I thought it was all a bit woo-woo and didn't believe in it at all. Until actually I came to understand it, and then I thought, oh my frigging God, I wish I'd known and realised, and you'll soon learn why, because actually there's a bigger message for you, which is not paying attention to it can have catastrophic effects. So it isn't just a nice thing to do, it's actually a pretty important thing to do. So who am I? I'm the woman, I think, with the pink L plates. I know that feminism isn't all about being girly, but actually if it was, like, I'd say I wear pink L plates, they come on and off. I'm not quite sure if I'm onto the green ones yet, I think when you've been driving for a while. But with Katie's help and others, they come on and off. So my job title is Hacker-in-Chief. And that doesn't mean I'm a technical hacker. I called myself a hacker-in-chief when I did some research, and I can never remember what my own attributes are. And what it means is that I try and hack. I'm a design thinker at heart, which is I try to hack the best out of everything in life and society to make better things. So my job is to help anybody from a government minister to someone who runs a small company, or it could be a big company like Google, design answers. So it could be design a new policy, it could be design a new product, it could be design a new service, it could be anything. It could be they need to just think in a completely different way. Which means I have to be pretty intuitive, right? So you'd think I'd be that all the time, wouldn't you? But if only that was the case. Because what I've learned in my life was I did start in my life as in a career of communications and PR, which was lots of fun, and I worked for Lord Bell, but I went into things like behaviour change. But I learned time and time again that I was coming across, I was very privileged to get to do amazing things, that it was when I would go in and go, I'd listen, and people would say, we want to do this thing, and I'd say, no, I think we should do this. And I would implicitly know, and we would do it. And let me tell you about the great things I did, which is very uncomfortable to me to talk about great things I did, because not only am I female, but I kind of fear that hand on my shoulder. And that disbelief in that my ability to think great or do great was that once I won with the great, I then thought I'd better be bloody masculine and work like Billio to make it perfect, because it was probably an accident, right, that I got that right. Shit, it works. I didn't even realise I did that, but that is actually what I did. You know, perfectionist, you've got nothing on it. I literally used to sometimes go 3 days without sleep in my office. It was a point of pride. Teams loved it. Completely mad. Does it make sense to anybody?
Yes.
Oh, good. But you'll need to learn. So as a human-centered design thinker, what are the sorts of things I've been able to do? So I work in a very world dominated by masculine energy and men, and often world leaders, and often I'm the only woman. And interestingly, one of the men I met who's got probably the strongest feminine energy I've met is Bill Clinton. And I hadn't realised that till Katie brought it to my attention, and I met somebody recently who remembers being in the room when we met Bill. And the reason I got close to him was because I didn't realise it then, I tapped into his energy and mine. I'd taken a bunch of ministers and people to America to discover innovation, and we'd gone to the Clinton Foundation to meet his team, and the hope was that he might turn up, but it wasn't sure, and we were all in the boardroom, and there was no guarantee that Bill would turn up. And this man walked in the room with his sleeves rolled up and asked if anybody wanted tea and coffee, and they were all like going, yes, yes, and Lord Darcy was like, yes, could I have mine black, please, 1 sugar, and I'm thinking, that looks like Bill Clinton. And I went, shall I come and help you? And he went, yeah, because I thought, he looks really interesting. So I went in the kitchen and it was Bill. And I was in the kitchen for 20 minutes making tea and coffee with him and learned these amazing things. And went back in, and then when they realised it was, they were all going, hey, why didn't you tell us? And I look back at that moment because people said to me, how did you know? I said, I don't know, I just went with it. It was my instinct. He was offering tea and coffee. I thought I was really connected, and I just went with it. And I had probably 20 of the most magical moments of my life next to this incredible person that bust every myth. You know, his offices were downtown, they were scruffy, not posh, no posh carpets, nothing. They were quite dusty. He was doing great work, and then I met this amazing creature, really, I describe him, because I would describe him as neither man nor woman, but you'd definitely sleep with him if he asked. That's got a bit of feminine, masculine energy as well. So don't show this to my husband because he used to get really jealous about hearing about it from other women who were in the room who didn't end up in the kitchen with him, who were deeply upset. So I'm going to tell you about some of the things I look back and realised that it was me tapping into my feminine. I didn't even know it, and it was in my job. Was that I had a wonderful job, and one of the things we were asked to do was, does anybody remember the story of the child migrants, the children and babies we sent to Australia, and they were abused, and many of them were murdered and killed, and all of this had come to a head, and the woman Margaret Humphreys, who discovered and covered this story, you might have seen the film or the book, Sunshine and Oranges, had demanded a public apology and money and time to bring together the last of these child migrants so that they could be reunited with their families and those that were still alive. And the government came to us, and Wales worked at Bell Potter, and they said, Claire, can you help us? We want a great photo shoot. We want them coming off the aircraft. We want them on the tarmac, smile, Prime Minister, and we want to do a few things. We want you to organise it. And we're like, what? So, can you tell me the story? So hang on a minute. We and the royal family sent babies, took children, lied to their parents, told them they were dead, they were murdered, and this went on in all these other countries around the world, and we're going to do a photo call. No. I said, so now you've told me the story. I actually stood up and said, in my feminine, I guess it was, and said, you've told me the story now, so I'm really sorry you've lifted the lid off. I won't allow you to do that, because if you do, I'm going to go to the papers and tell the truth. So what I think we need to do as a country is tell the truth and be humble and say, oh my God, look at what we did. Isn't it terrible? We should apologise. And they said, but we would have to get all the parties to apologise. Labour, Lib Dem, government would all have to unite, and we'd have to get the countries of New Zealand and Africa and Canada and all the others to agree and apologise simultaneously and be at one. And I said, well, so be it. And it will be much greater, and people will be so much more forgiving. And that's exactly what we managed to achieve. I don't know if you remember it, but the government's united. There was tears in the House of Commons. It was the most emotional thing I've ever done in my life, meeting these incredibly damaged and wonderful creatures, men of 70 who'd hidden scraps of teddy bears that'd been torn from when they were babies, and who were just hankering for family and to be apologised to. But what I realised looking back was, people around me said, God, I never forget that moment when you just stood up and went, really sorry, you've told me now, so if we don't do it this way, I'm going to go to the papers anyway and tell them the whole truth. We can't just make this a nice PR thing because it won't wash. And as a result, lots of good things happened, and the three parties united, and those people got something back, and many good things have happened since. And I've done other things like that when I've really stepped into my feminine, I guess, or stepped into my power and being unapologetic about it. And I've also learnt that in my last job when I left, somebody said they were telling tales, what was my legacy, and there were some big things I'd done, and one of them said it was her curly whirly cake bill from Conditor and Cook. And somebody said, curly whirly cake bill? I said, yeah, in the time she was here in 6 years, she bought 364 curly whirly giant cakes from Conditor and Cook, and something like 52 lemon drizzle. And everybody said, why? And I said, well, we'd go to big meetings with ministers. Any meeting was going to be really difficult. My instinct was, I'm a feeder, she'll tell you that. Take cake, because even the most important person can't resist some cake. It's humble, you put it on the table, it looks really great, it's a great looking cake, you unpack it. It's a real distraction for when things are really shit. And you're going to have a really difficult conversation. But there's something deeply human about it. And it used to be a joke, but I kid you not, some very important people that I've worked with over my life now, if ever I still come across them or I go into a meeting, if I don't take cake, they're really disappointed. And it was powerful because it was simple, and it helped people to connect to who they were as human beings. And in my world as a designer, we forget that these beautiful things that we desire were designed based on the needs and wishes and our human selves. The technology is really important, but what makes an iPhone great, hey? What makes the things great that you use and love is because they're designed for you as a human, by humans, with deep human understanding, the beauty of how it sweeps and how it looks. And I just love my new Mac when it comes in that white box, you know. They know that. You know, that's got very little to do with the power of whatever it is, their fast processor that's inside. I mean, that's not really what turns us on, is it? It's that and the nice men with the tattoos and the Genius bar. Which can be also complete as well. So, what is my fix? So, the dark side of me is I do use my masculine, but my dark side of me is definitely my masculine. My masculine is my fix because it was that I realised I got a lot of satisfaction out of working really hard and doing what I thought was creating bigger, better things, because I didn't realise I'd created something big enough already, and I could stand back and, like a tree or a plant, you wouldn't actually just keep watering a plant, would you, because it would die, and you wouldn't just keep hoeing it, you would nurture it a bit and then you would let it grow. And what I realised, what I tended to do was like plant something beautiful, and then I'd be like doing this to it and adding more water. It would eventually still grow, but actually it would have grown anyway because there was plenty of sunshine in the world, and the rain would have come on its own. And that was something that I don't think I ever realised really. So I guess my personal journey is I've lived a cycle of doing amazing things and of burnout. Working like a crazy person and burning out as a consequence and not really enjoying the fruits, although I do love to stop. I love spa days, I love my family, and I love to stop, but I never kind of gave myself that ridiculous notion of permission. So how has that affected my personal life? So this is the dark and sadder side of my life, which has been full of amazing things, is that because I was so busy making money, and losing it as well, because that's what you do, right? You're either spending it on expensive food because you're so busy you can't cook, and more expensive clothes because you haven't got time to shop and really look around, and more expensive holidays because you didn't have time to look around either, so everything costs more. The reality is that you become detached from the beautiful things. So while I was incredibly busy and I was the breadwinner, I didn't stop. I look back and I remember my children would be saying, "Mum, sit down, stop, I just want to stop." And I'd be going, it's okay, show me, oh, it's brilliant, look, I've got to go, darling, and I'd be running out. I'd be on a plane, I'd be running, and I was doing it for them. 5 of them through private school, didn't do them any better. The one that went to state school did best of all. In many ways, it didn't do better, and my energy was distracted elsewhere all of the time. And what that meant was that I had one of my boys was I promised I might cry, which would really be good for me.
So might I.
So I had this beautiful boy, my first baby. Because I was a risk taker, I met a man who I can't really tell you who he is, but I had this wonderful baby. And I was very young, and I had to leave university, which might be why I used to run around like a Billy O, proving I wasn't thick. Because I got pregnant, I was offered by Durham University. It was like either an abortion or you leave, and they, told me I was their great hope, and I chose to leave because I was horrified to bring up my beautiful boy. And he was lovely, but he had challenges. He was very bright, and life wasn't easy on him. And because I was so distracted, we got angry with him because he was doing crazy stuff. He was 20, 21, and he had crazy friends around him, and I was very distracted and busy. And then eventually I realised that I started tuning into me, and all I knew was that it had got so bad. My feminine was obviously, if that's what it was then, was like a dog inside me going, "For God's sake, Claire, stop." And so eventually I was due to go away one weekend with my husband to Paris, and I'm not going. I just need to be here. I need to stay. And I decided to leave my big job because I would get 3 months gardening leave, and I decided to take my boy to Texas, where I'd heard about one of these programs where you could really get quality time with your kid, and I could regroup, and he could be, I could bring him back to earth and bring us back to being. And I thought that this is what I'm going to do. I didn't tell my husband straight away because I thought I'm going to tell him first. He wasn't living at home at the time. He was living with friends of ours. And I didn't go to Paris. So I did follow my energy then. And I stayed at home. And I thought, I'm going to tell my gorgeous boy on Sunday. And then I thought, no, on Saturday, I'm going to tell him today. I sat on the sofa all day. All I know was there was something telling me I couldn't move. And I sat on that sofa and I couldn't move. And then I thought, oh no, I'm going to ring him. And it was 4:30. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to ring him. And I'm going to tell him where we're going to go. And I'd booked the tickets and everything to go. And I'd left my job the day before on the Friday. And the phone rang. And it was a friend, and my husband said, Penny's on the phone, she wants to go to the cinema. And I've told her we haven't gone to Paris. And I've said, you're not good, you need cheering up. And I'm like, no, I don't want to take the call. And he's like, it's Penny, and she's a great contact of yours. And I'm going, no, because I wanted to talk to my son, right? It's more important. And my husband's going, it's Penny, Claire. I took the call. My son was outside, and he got in a car. And 10 minutes later he was dead. And I don't blame myself anymore, but the reality is I didn't follow my intuition. My intuition was screaming at me to not do that and to connect with him, to take him away, but I kind of left it too long, I'd left it too long. And right at that 11th hour, when I was pushed to it, I didn't have my confidence and my inner self to go, actually no, I'm really going to talk to Alex. Because I didn't want to tell my husband that I'd made this big decision because I hadn't sat him down yet. I was going to do that the next day. I wanted to tell my boy first. And I didn't have the courage to follow my instincts. And I look back at that and think, we don't trust our intuition enough. When I've trusted at work, I've made the most momentous, incredible things happen. I look back and I think, oh God, yeah. I helped DeepMind get AI off the ground in health and big things like that are great, but actually I failed to really listen when I was at home. And I think sometimes we do the opposite. We listen at home with our feminine side. We might tune into our loved ones, but do we do it at work? And I know that in my business now, I still struggle with it. I still go through cycles of burnout, and then the money runs out, and then I relax into it, and then it just comes. And I find that with life, when I take care of me and the people around me properly, and I tune in, I believe that we're all geniuses inside, and that we all have it, that then everything's fine. So my advice to you, I've got a few things because you need to get back to your food, is that there are a few things I think important. Recognise the power of cake. My beloved mother. My mum was a jazz singer and my dad was a nuclear physicist, and they were like an amazing grouping, and they completely loved each other. And they both respected each other. And my mum thought tea and cake was the answer to everything, and my dad thought he used to take me in the garden, teach me to smoke cigars because I wouldn't be common then, smoking cigarettes, drink whiskey and do Tai Chi. So there was no hope. But my mother taught me about the power of cake. The other thing is, don't be a boiling frog. I don't know if you know how frogs work. If you put a frog in warm or cold water, it'll sit there till the water and die until the water's really boiling hot, and then it'll scream. If you throw it into boiling hot water, it'll jump out. So don't be a boiling frog, Keep connected with the world around you, and really look and listen and learn when the heat's going up, If you think, oh, that's feeling a bit warm, it is warm. Don't, how we all go, is it me or is it warm? Warm. It's true though, isn't it? We always do that. Is it me or is it warm? Is it me or is it raining outside? What do you mean? See the rain, it's raining, you stupid idiot. You didn't succeed by accident. You get told that time and time again. We don't succeed by accident. It's true what Katie says, the feminine is stronger, and there's no accident that women live longer. I know it's not meant to be a gender thing, but I think it's quite interesting that women live longer. And I think live life by the Green Cross Code, I'd say. Stop, look and listen, and it'll all be fine. That's it.